I'm Janda, and in this episode of Behind the Song, powered by Chick-fil-A, let's dive into a song with some of the most cryptic lyrics of the 90s, all about being stuck in the same destructive situation over and over again. As it turns out, the song was sadly prophetic because the lead singer did become a casualty to the patterns of addiction that he was singing about. It's an odd hit, clocking in at just under 3 minutes long, helped on its way to the top of the charts by a totally hypnotic riff that seemed to underline the lyrical content of the song, the feeling of being trapped with no escape route out of a sticky situation. Let's get into the story of Vasoline by Stone Temple Pilots. If you like this episode, hit subscribe and let us know in the comments. Released on Stone Temple Pilots' second album, Purple, in June of 1994, Vasoline was a huge hit, and the album went to number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart. But everything wasn't exactly good behind the scenes with the band. The success of STP, who hailed from Southern California, always came under the shadow of the Seattle grunge gods, who changed the shape of music and the music industry in the early 90s. Despite the fact that STP's debut album, 1992's Core, had been a massive commercial success with major hits like Plush and Creep, the success came at a price for the band. Despite their popularity, the music press was often brutal, dismissing them as grunge clones or industry plants. Frontman Scott Weiland took this criticism to heart. While the rest of the band, brothers Dean and Robert DeLeo and Eric Kretz, tried to ignore the noise, Weiland felt like he in particular was under a microscope. This sense of being watched, judged, and trapped became the psychological foundation for their sophomore effort, Purple. During the recording of Purple, Weiland's struggle with heroin was shifting from recreational use into a full-blown dependency. The making of this album is one of the most poignant examples of the sophomore slump paradox, in that on one hand, the band were about to silence their critics with a hugely successful release, while on the other hand, making it served as the backdrop for Weiland's deepening entanglement with addiction, a descent that would eventually define the rest of his life. During the recording sessions for Core, Weiland was disciplined, even athletic as a performer. However, by the time the band got together with producer Brendan O'Brien to record Purple, the pressures of sudden superstardom and the isolation of the road had taken their toll. You can hear it in his lyrics all across this album. The swirling textures of other songs like Big Empty and Interstate Love Song, both hits, are retrospective evidence of the shift in his psyche and his worldview during this time. The atmosphere in the studio was often clouded by Weiland's unpredictable state. There were reports of him being unable to perform or needing medical intervention, the beginning of a cycle of rehab and relapse for Weiland, and the beginning of the band's struggle to keep it together on the road while he careened off the rails. Despite the chaos, the music on Purple has a melodic sophistication that wasn't there on the band's debut. Weiland's vocals transitioned from a heavy growl to a more crooning style, possibly to mask the physical toll that his addiction was beginning to take. To truly understand the Stone Temple Pilots sound, you have to look at the engine room, Robert and Dean DeLeo. While Scott Weiland was the mesmerizing focal point, the rock star of the band, the DeLeo brothers were the architects of the band's musical identity. In the landscape of 90s rock, they were outliers, musicians who were just as likely to be listening to Burt Bacharach as they were to Led Zeppelin. And the songwriting process in STP was all about collaboration. The brothers would bring in the music, and Weiland would then find the melody and lyrics to fit the mood that they had created. Robert, the bassist, was often the primary songwriter. He wrote from a really melodic, jazz-influenced perspective, major sevenths and suspended chords that gave STP a lush sound that was absent from the music made by their grunge peers. It was Robert who actually wrote the main riff for Vasoline, the pulsing backbone of the song, and he wrote it on a bass guitar first. His brother Dean's job was to take Robert's structures and translate them into a wall of guitar sound. His ability to layer sounds is a sonic signature on STP songs, and is one of the reasons he's often talked about as being underrated as a guitarist. What the two brothers did together gave the songs a thicker, harmonically rich texture that felt much bigger than a four-piece band. To get the tone that makes Vasoline stand out, a small, overdriven combo amp was used to create an almost nasal sound. Then Dean famously used a wah-wah pedal as a filter, leaving it half-cocked to create the honking drone in the song that sticks so well in your head. Truly, without the DeLeo brothers' technical skill and their love of 60s pop and 70s prog rock, STP would have been just another heavy band from the 90s. But with their musical versatility providing the bedrock under Weiland's increasingly cryptic lyrics, they set themselves apart from the pack. And the lyrics of Vasoline say it all about where Weiland was at that moment. Interestingly, the title of the song and the famous line, "Flies in the Vaseline we are," actually started as a mistake. The story goes that as a kid, he misheard the lyrics to the Eagles' "Life in the Fast Lane" as "Flies in the Vaseline." And it was that misheard lyric that took on a dark, literal meaning for Weiland. Vasoline goes like this. "One time a thing occurred to me. What's real and what's for sale? Blew a kiss and tried to take it home. Isn't you, isn't me. Search for things that you can't see. Going blind, out of reach, somewhere in the Vaseline." What's real and what's for sale? The life of a rock star struggling with fame, credibility, and a burgeoning drug addiction, getting further out of reach. And it goes on. "2 times and it has rendered me, punch drunk and without bail. Think I'd be safer all alone. Flies in the Vaseline we are. Sometimes it blows my mind. Keep getting stuck here all the time." Many addicts talk about how isolating their addiction is. The solitary path of someone who has replaced real relationships with a chemical one. Stuck there all alone like a fly that can't free itself once it lands in a jar of Vaseline. The perfect metaphor for drug addiction. When he sings, "Sometimes it blows my mind," there's a sense of disbelief. He's shocked that he's ended up back in the same trap, even though he saw it coming. It's the Groundhog Day effect of doing something you have less and less control over. The song ends. "You'll see the look and you'll see the lies. You'll eat the lies, and you will." Lies are a huge part of an addict's problem. The need to tell lies and the shame of becoming a liar in order to feed the need to use. In his memoir, Not Dead and Not for Sale, Weiland said that this song addressed the period where he began lying to his first wife, Janina, and his bandmates about his drug use. And he said on VH1 Storytellers that it was written about feeling like an insect under a magnifying glass, trapped by the media's scrutiny and by his own growing internal demons. By the time the album was released and their tour to promote it began, the dirty secret was out. Weiland's first drug-related arrest happened in 1995, just a year after Vasoline hit #1 on the rock charts. He was busted for possession behind a seedy hotel in Pasadena, California, and it marked the first time he was issued a mandatory rehab sentence. It was not his last arrest, and it marked the beginning of a decades-long cycle of rehab, relapse, and legal trouble that would eventually lead to his tragic death. While the Purple Album stands as one of the best of 90s rock, it's also a document of a man losing his footing. It captured Weiland at a crossroads. He was at the absolute peak of his talent and fame, yet simultaneously, it's when he began the long goodbye that characterized his career afterward. Despite the personal chaos, STP's musical output remained remarkably strong after the Purple Album. 1996's Tiny Music Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop was a departure into glam rock and psychedelia and was critically acclaimed, but it didn't do the sales the previous 2 albums did because the tour was canceled so Weiland could go to rehab. In 1999, the band returned to a back-to-basics sound with their 4th album, number 4. And in 2001, STP released Shangri-La-Dee-Da, their final album before a long hiatus and Weiland's stint singing for the supergroup Velvet Revolver. Weiland was eventually fired from Velvet Revolver, and he was 48 years old when he was found fatally overdosed on his tour bus at a solo tour stop in Minnesota in December of 2015. The DeLeo brothers and drummer Eric Kretz brought on new singer, X Factor contestant Jeff Gutt in 2017. They released 2 more albums and toured as STP, and the DeLeo brothers continue to work on new musical projects. Stone Temple Pilots made music on those first 2 albums that will always be a big part of the rock timeline, silencing their critics' voices, even through Weiland's struggles. The Purple album went 6 times platinum and yielded 3 hit singles, including Vasoline. And in writing the lyrics of this song, Scott Weiland may have left behind his most truthful work, a song about knowing exactly where the exit door is, but being too stuck to actually reach for the handle. I'm Janda, and this has been Behind the Song. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel, or better yet, tell a friend. Special thanks, as always, to Christian Lane for the music you hear on these podcast episodes. You can find me on the air at 97.1 FM The Drive in Chicago and at WDRV.com. On the way, much more classic rock and roll. Chicago, get ready to turn up the flavor. Chick-fil-A is bringing the heat with the new Jalapeno Ranch Club sandwich, made for bold taste lovers. It starts with a perfectly seasoned, juicy chicken breast on a toasted buttermilk ranch bun. Then it's layered with pepper jack cheese, crisp lettuce, fresh tomato, and pickled jalapenos for just the right kick. But it doesn't stop there. Add strips of sweet and smoky candied bacon, plus a side of creamy jalapeno ranch sauce, and every bite hits that perfect balance of heat, flavor, and crunch. And when you're ready to cool things down, grab a strawberry hibiscus drink blended with Chick-fil-A lemonade, Sprite, or freshly brewed iced tea for a refreshing twist. The Jalapeno Ranch Club and strawberry hibiscus beverages are here for a limited time at participating Chicagoland Chick-fil-A locations. Don't wait. Bold flavor like this doesn't stick around. Chick-fil-A. Eat more chicken.